Forrester says that within the next 2 years, roughly 90% of B2B executives want to buy without ever talking to a sales rep. At the same time, OpenAI and other AI native companies are hiring SDRs by the hundreds. The signal feels contradictory, and that contradiction is exactly what makes the next 6 months in B2B so hard to predict. Today, we get specific about where the noise is real, where the human still wins, and what sellers and leaders should be doing right now to be ready for what comes next. Welcome to Some Goodness, where we engage seasoned business leaders and experts to share practical guidance and tips to help new and future leaders maximize their impact. My guest today is Brayden Young, co-founder of /Experts and previously of Sendoso. In our last conversation, we talked about why your existing customers are the best sellers you're not using. Today, we zoom out a bit. What is B2B selling about to look like, and what do leaders need to be doing now to stay ahead of it? Brayden, welcome back.
Good to be here. I think this is my second time on, so, feeling like I know what I'm doing now.
There you go. Well, we had a great conversation last time, and so looking forward to diving in with you today and really kind of giving a new look into what B2B sales looks like kind of now and going forward in light of, recent trends and AI and all of this other goodness. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I think that it depends too on when we post this, because it feels like every day there's a new B2B AI tool that someone vibe coded or created. It's amazing how fast the space is moving.
That is a great point. Yeah. Are some of these podcast episodes going to be outdated really quickly?
Yeah. Right. It's like, they didn't talk about ABC tool that just launched, and it's so I'm in San Francisco, and it's funny because there's like a competition when you leave SFO and drive home and go to the city, all the billboards change so quickly because these companies are raising insane amounts of money, and then they buy all the billboards for a week and they change again. And so it's funny to see how much they're trying to get attention, I would say, on the freeway using old school billboard marketing tech.
No kidding. I didn't even think about, how this translates to the analog world of updating, signs and billboards and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's still the same old, what's on the side of a bus in San Francisco and a billboard off the freeway. And that's your go-to-market plan.
Right. Well, let's dive in and let's start with a bit of a buyer perspective. So Forrester has put out some great research, and one line or stat that gets quoted a lot is, something like 90% of executives want to buy without talking to a rep, right? Something in that order of magnitude has been quoted, I think for the past year or so. From your perspective, does that really hold up in practice? And kind of what are you saying in terms of buyers wanting to be able to just buy without talking to a real person?
Yeah, you can kind of look at it from two angles. I think the first one is what we see, and we've built /experts in that space, is a lot of folks are reading reviews, talking to friends, doing back channels, talking to folks who they know use the tech at a different company before they go and press that take a demo button. They already have an idea, hey, I know this solves a problem that I have, or I know this solved a friend's problem. I have the same problem. I'm going to go talk to him and I'm going to purchase as fast as I can. So I think there's a couple different angles there. Most are just hey, reviews are fine. Can I get a sample demo? Great. Can I get a pilot for, if you're an enterprise company, it's always a pilot for a month. There's a ton of different ways folks are kind of testing before they decide to move forward with a product, because there's so many unproven systems out there that are just brand new. I mean, it's tough right now. There's a lot of startups that are saying, hey, we work with all these enterprise customers, which is great. It's a great thing to say, great to go raise money on. But the problem is every single enterprise company has a budget for AI tools. So they go and they sell Oracle. Awesome. Great. Oracle's now a customer. They're not, because they bought you and all your competition, and they're testing all of you and seeing which one sticks, which works the best to solve the problem. And then at the end of that pilot phase, they leave you. And so I think that there's a different metric you got to look at as you're kind of building go to market. It's, do you integrate with their CRM? Great. Are you multi-threaded? Awesome. I think there's many things there that, prove if you're sticky beyond just like selling a deal. So I think like that's one angle you can look at it. The other one is like to your stat. Folks just like sales is one of those things when you're on the phone with somebody, if it's not the right sales rep, I mean, they're being motivated to sell your product. And so like that's how they're paid. And so a lot of the time
Right.
they're not giving you the data you want. And it's
Right.
sometimes hard to find a really good sales rep, someone who's like, hey, like we're not a fit for you. Like that's okay to say. Like it's good to be consultative on a call,
Sure.
but the sales rep is motivated to sell something because they need to hit their number. And with these rounds of funding we're seeing, there's big numbers they have to hit. And so there's going to be folks that aren't fits. And I think sometimes it's hard to say no, but you have to as a sales rep. And then the last thing you said was, will folks buy without talking to somebody? I think the line's 10 grand. So I think that if it's over 10 grand, you need a human in the loop. If it's below 10
Yeah.
grand, I think maybe it's like a PLG play. There's exceptions. I mean, there's Amazon Web Services and all those, but I don't know. Like I like talking to a human. I mean, I think that like the old like one throat to choke sort of thing. If someone messes up, you know who to go to. I think that like I just don't know if that ever goes like fully automated, especially over $10,000. I know there's companies that are building that space that disagree with me, and I think that they can prove that there's lots of like deals they've sold that are way over $10,000 that a human was never involved. But maybe sales changes more of an account management role, and like so maybe like after you buy it for 40 grand, like a person helps you onboard and that's your salesperson, like almost like a land and expand type method. But I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point. And you could argue about the 10,000, is it, where is that threshold? But I think there is a threshold there where above it, more of a complex platform or a more significant investment, you do want to talk to who are you going to be partnering with? This is a strategic decision for the business, and you don't want to just go into it from, a couple of demos and a trial.
Especially if you're new. Now, I do think there's sunk cost software systems out there, and this is probably people will disagree with me on this. Like, I think if you're building a CRM, you're going to go HubSpot or Salesforce. Like, they're proven, they work well. I don't need to talk to a sales rep at HubSpot. Like, I know I want it. Let me sign up, leave me alone. There's just names around forever that are like the sunk cost systems. Like, you're going to go AWS. I don't need to talk to a sales rep there. And so I think that those ones have proven brands, proven value. I don't think that, they have a problem with that. But if you're a startup that's a couple of years old and you're in a new space and you're trying to build, or if you're like kind of like a niche type software, I think you do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, and you also bring up a good point, going back to that stat that, it's also about the sales interaction, right? Companies and buyers specifically are much more educated than they ever were. They have, just data at their fingertips, especially through AI agent. Now I don't have to go search Reddit forums to find, comparative pricing. I could just tell my agent, go do this research for me and come, educate me, right? And so I thought you brought a great point that it's not that maybe they necessarily don't want to talk to a rep. It's like they don't want to talk to a bad rep that's not helpful or valuable, that's going to waste their time. And what keeps you up at night, right? Tell me your pain points. And it's like, oh, I'm beyond that.
I mean, it wasn't long ago that when I started in sales, the process was you go like, I want a demo, raise your hand. Like I'd like to find information about you. And then you were basically sent to an SDR who, I started there, like 22-year-olds who basically are like, hey, like right out of college, like they're going to qualify you. Ask you questions like, what's your stack? What are you going to spend? And then if you're good, then you go to the AE. And then you go to the AE, then you go to the SE. And so you have the AE, the SE, both on the phone. And then at some point manager comes in, they're going to close a deal. And so basically now you've talked to 4 people. And like you're going to close a deal and maybe they loop in like the CEO if they're a company because they're like, great to welcome you to the team. So you have 5 people involved and the CX, 6 people. So you talk to 6 people and the deal size is $24K. Like that's too many. I think that now it's like, I mean, your AE, your SDR, and your SE, I think needs to be one person. I think that like if you're an AE right now and you're starting your job or your career, I think to be technical is really important.
Yeah, very good. Well, and just, pointing out the kind of the underlying principle there is one size doesn't fit all. And so you need to really segment your market and your buyers and your ICP. And those larger, more strategic accounts, they're going to be bigger, more strategic deals, bigger buying committees, and you may need a team to support that kind of a sales motion.
Yeah.
Bottom of the tier, you don't need 6 people. It slows you down. It frustrates the client, right? And so really kind of aligning your customer engagement approach to the market segments would be a great place to start. And I see a lot of missed opportunity there.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't think there seems to be that many people involved in a deal cycle. I think that there's I think there's lots of opportunity there for less humans in the loop, but I do think there needs to be one like probably
Yeah.
for the next
Yeah.
5, 10 years. I mean, you see the big AI companies all hiring SDR teams because they know there needs to be somebody to help, navigate the big enterprise deals to help get deals closed.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question for you is you mentioned humans and AI companies. It's kind of strange to watch these large AI companies that, should arguably need less humans because they're an AI native company. I mean, they're building the stuff. They're hiring hundreds of SDRs. And so
Yeah.
what does that tell you? And what are some of your takeaways just based on your experience?
So like Salesforce being like, like the best trained salespeople of all time. It's funny. Anthropic, I think, has hired all of them. Like if you were at Salesforce, like in like the early 2000s and you were a manager, like you're probably at Anthropic right now. And it just proves that you can get your foot in the door with a name like Anthropic to big enterprise customers spending lots and lots of money with you, which is amazing. I mean, it's amazing marketing. But in order to grow those accounts, in order to have different teams use it to roll out new products used to help land and expand those accounts, you have to have people do it. I don't think that your brand is strong enough to do it on its own. I think that like people have to help navigate those different things you're rolling out every 2 days if you're Anthropic in that example. So having sales helps. I also think that there's people are inherently, I mean, like for lack of a better term, lazy with new things. Like I get like a newsletter from all the softwares I use, like probably once a month. I never read it. I just delete it. I'm like, cool, things you rolled out. I don't read those. So you have to have someone during your QBRs and sales be like, hey, by the way, these are the 4 things you just rolled out because we noticed some of our customers are having problems with ABC. You should use them too. So I think that like you're
Right.
never gonna sell that through a newsletter. Like, I mean,
Right.
maybe there's exceptions. Maybe if you're AWS and you're selling to engineers and like you built this new product, maybe. I don't think so. I think that there has to be a human involved there somewhere. And so I think that they know that at the big AI companies. And I think that's why they're hiring sales. That's why they're hiring account management, why they're hiring CX, and then SDRs, because the bubbles that we live in, AI is like a topic of conversation. But if you're like I don't know, Procter and Gamble company, or like you're a big HVAC company in Kentucky or Tennessee or something like that, AI is not even on your radar. And like you
Right.
might do, 50 million a year, but like you'd have never, like I don't know what an AI SDR is. And so I think like that has to be able to be navigated too. I mean, Salesforce is still a massive sales team. Like what, they're 30 years old and they're still trying to bring companies to use Salesforce, which is
Right.
crazy to us because we've had it for so long. But like there's still companies out there that have never touched a CRM.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, like there's still like whenever you go to like more of like the trade like blue collar type of the world, like there's like I mean like I think the other day I had a guy who's like trim my trees around my house. So he's like, great, I'll be there like Tuesday between like 8 and 5. You're like, okay, cool, I'll just stay home all day and like hope that like you show up at some point. Like CRMs can help with that. I mean, like it's still like none of that's changed. And like so there's so many companies that aren't in the AI bubble that haven't even touched it yet that I think, that's why you have to have sales still to help you do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, so we've talked a little bit about kind of the no rep approach and then the full on rep approach. There's kind of a hybrid or an in between approach that, it's the emergence of avatar reps
Yep.
and AI reps, right? And so tell me where you're seeing that get some real good traction, where it's appropriate and it works well versus, if you're this type of company or industry, you might want to stay away from that.
I think that's where we are. I think most, especially the companies that we talk to, are in like that middle approach. Like you used to have to hire 5 AEs to handle like X amount of pipeline, and I think now one AE could do the job of 3 or 4 because of the AI tools that are out there. Like maybe they're not on first demo, maybe it's a recorded demo from an avatar, but at some point you have to talk to the person to close the deal. All of your
Right.
cadences and sequencing from like beginning to end to like all that's done by AI at some point. The deal's closed, they're onboarding, all that is self-controlled. And so I think that there's a lot of different jobs that you don't need as many people for. Like we were on the phone with somebody and they ask very technical questions. Like there's enough SE tools out there, sales engineering tools that can help you answer technical questions. So I think there's a lot of stuff that helps one AE do the jobs of like 4 or 5 people, which
Yeah.
I think is why you see a lot of companies move towards layoffs because they're like, great, I can get rid of some middle management folks that are responsible for like a part of the segment that just seems unnecessary now because one person can
Mhm.
just do the job of more. Now, I do think that this creates new jobs that we haven't heard of before, like go-to-market engineers, people that are helping
Mhm.
set up those cadences. I
Right.
think that I think content writers are still very, very important for outbound sales emails. I think marketers are insanely important to try to help brands stand out. So I think there's new jobs that are being created because of AI that are more technical jobs, but I don't think there's as many. I think some of the older jobs we're going to see go away. I think like the traditional SDR will go away, but I think the more technical SDR, I think will, be a new job that folks will hire
Yeah,
for.
I see there's definitely an evolution there, right?
Yeah.
And some of it is kind of clear in terms of where things are headed, some of it unclear that we're just going to learn as the tools get better and the technology gets more capable. One of the things I've seen is, especially from the avatar rep type of standpoint, is that works really well for PLG companies, right?
Great. Yeah, I agree.
You
Yeah.
have a nice scripted, story-based demo led by an avatar, and you can get a lot of information for that. It's probably all you need to really sign up for that trial of 2 seats and give it a go. And then, at some point there might be some conversion where you talk to a real rep if you want to expand it for a whole department or an enterprise license or something like that. But outside of PLG type companies, do you see avatars specifically or just kind of automating that sales cycle be helpful or optimal that people might
I
not be
think
considering?
I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to have as an option. I think you really need to know your industry and who you're selling to. Also, I mean, if you look at when you're trying to get a deal signed, I think you have to look at it from like who your signer is too. And
Hmm.
generationally, like who's the person signing on the dotted line? Like you have the baby boomers are still working.
Hmm.
Millennials are all like in their 40s now, and so like those guys are signing contracts, and then Gen X and those guys. So you're signing to people that grew up in a world of cold calling, of face to face, of dinners, of golf, and things like that. So I think you still have to have that as part of your sales motion. I do think you can get really far with an avatar, like a PLG type system, maybe some mid market type stuff. But I do think if you go and try to hit those enterprise companies up or ask for bigger contracts, I do think there has to be a human in the loop there to help move the deal forward, just because it's how we were all trained. Now, that might be different in
Yeah.
10 years, 20 years from now. Maybe it's totally different, where it's like, hey, people are comfortable just paying $60,000 plus for a tool and they
Yeah.
don't talk to anybody. There's exceptions. I mean, like Amazon, we pay a ton to them. Claude, we pay a ton to them,
Yeah.
or Anthropic. So, I mean, like those are tools that you're just okay, but they're more outcome-based pricing versus like a SaaS type model, which I think is why you see
Right.
the SaaS apocalypse and all those things happening because everyone's moving towards the outcome-based pricing.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I love this conversation because you're just picking your brain about different elements. And it's really about kind of, in light of the latest technological advances and AI, how does that really change or shape legacy approaches? And so another
Yeah.
one comes to mind. You mentioned earlier about, you're talking about CRMs. So one other trend that I'm seeing, I just want your perspective on is, this emergence of the all-in-one, kind of platforms that, like the legacy approach is you've got your CRM system, right? Which everybody knows what that is. And then you've got your call intelligence add-on, right? It might be an outreach or a gong or something. And so you buy that. And then you've got your, account intelligence stuff, which is Apollo or whatever. But now we're seeing these companies like RSL and Monaco and others come in and say, hey, we can do that all for you in one single platform. You don't need all of these individual licenses. Are you seeing that trend as well?
Oh
And what is
yeah.
that saying about where are we going? And are there any kind of
Yeah.
gotchas we need to be careful about? And just give us some insights.
I mean, I think those are very cool systems I mean, we're a new user of Monaco and they just bought us as well, which I'm excited about. I think having one system do it all is great. I don't think that they take over the CRM space, but maybe everything else. I'm pretty bullish that I think the Salesforces and the HubSpots stay around forever because they're so secure also, which is insanely important. When you start storing customer data in a company that's new, it's kind of scary. And so like maybe in 5 years it'll be different. But like I do think if you're a cadence tool, a call tool, a data tool, I think all those will be one over the next couple of years for sure. Like I think if you're in that space and you're someone who's been there for a long time, then I think it's a scary place to be because you got to figure out how you compete on multiple fronts, which is not a problem that I think they've ever had. I do think there's too many tools. And so like having one that does it all is great. I think that's a great solution. I think it makes it easier for people that are engineers who are building companies who are like, I don't know go to market. If I just buy one tool, great. I think it's gonna be telling to see like how that goes over the next year. They've all raised a scary amount of money. And so like I don't know like what that looks like because they're going to have to expand very fast and hit some very big numbers and spend a lot of money on marketing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years to see how many folks they can bring on, and then going from the SMBs to the enterprise is going to, because like no one's ever been able to dethrone Salesforce just because they're so
Sure.
ingrained. And so
Yeah.
like does a Procter and Gamble leave Salesforce and go to one all-in-one solution? I don't think so. Like
Not in the
not
near
anytime soon.
term.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not anytime soon. That's right.
Yeah.
It's got to be proven because, half of the vendors or the tools out there today won't exist next year, right? And
Yeah.
so there'll be kind of, well, let's just say, I was going to say reckoning, but
Yeah. Well, I
that's
mean,
not
I think
where.
it's like it's a good point. I went to a dinner the other day and there was an interesting like they were talking about how like it's been possible for a long time to use AI to build a CRM. Like for years, like you can use it to build a CRM. The reason you buy Salesforce and HubSpot is because they've had millions and millions of bugs reported. They've dealt with them. If
Yeah,
something goes down, you know who to go to fix it, to yell at. If you have your own CRM that you built with AI and it goes down, it's on you. That's why I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I just like that's why I think that I'm a Salesforce stock owner, so I'm thinking those all need to go back up. Right?
right. Right. Yeah. But what we are going to see is a lot of rationalization and consolidation of tools, right?
I agree. Yeah,
Over the coming years. And so that puts the onus on these tech companies to differentiate themselves, live up to the promises they're making, right? Create some stickiness as they go to market and penetrate their markets. Because it's going
yeah.
to be it's going to be
There's a new
tough.
company. There's a new thing every like. There's a new wrapper
No.
every like couple days, which is like just wild in terms of like, and they raise a ton of money. I mean, there's YC companies that spin out that are raise $7 million, and like they're like, oh, we do X, and you're like that's a feature. It's not a platform. It's a feature, and like
Yeah.
that's interesting to see what happens with all those guys.
Let's kind of talk about from a leader perspective. So in light of, these are a lot of real time challenges that we're dealing with, as a leader of a business. You don't want to have a wait and see attitude because you'll be left behind, but at the
Yep.
same time, can't go all in and bet the farm on one player because they might not exist in a year. And there's just, to your point, new technologies and new companies coming out daily. So, what are some takeaways for our business leaders, revenue leaders, marketing leaders in light of, these trends? Any good practical tips for us?
I think that like if you're leading a go-to-market department, I've always believed heavily in partnerships in terms of like, and I think there's two kinds of partnerships. There's the one where you go and partner with the big dogs, the Salesforces of the world, and they don't care about you, but it's good to have a partnership there unless you're a big company. But like it's always good to have some form of partnership there. And then I think with companies that are the same size as you, like maybe a little bigger, I think it's good to build like a group of you. Let's say 5 or 6 companies that like your platforms play really nicely together, and it's good to go and do events with them, do dinners with them, do things like that because you kind of like you take your impact and you divide it by 5 because you have bigger teams to help do it. So I think if you're a sales leader, having some form of that is very, very important. I don't care if your company is 2 people. I think like selling in a silo is hard. And so having some form of partnership is very beneficial to you to help get deals. Like we do a million dinners and it's great because you have someone talking about you and it's good to sell deals that way. I think that's important. I think events are very important still. I think
Mhm.
like no matter how you talk about AI and all that great stuff that's happening with it, all these AI companies are going to conferences because that's all about like it's like so in person is very important. In person, the way I look at events is like I do the expo floor a lot and like learn what's there, and then I typically go to like 1 or 2 sessions, and then I go to like a happy hour for the first 30 minutes, and I get out of there. Like I like take a stack of business cards in. I'm like, once these are gone, I'm done, which is helpful. There's a lot of them in San Francisco, and so that helps to kind of like monitor
Sure.
yourself. Like I'm gonna get through this sack of 50 handed out, and then I'm gonna go home, hang out with my family. So I think it's important to just know what events are good, and then I think lastly is like just there's so much noise out there on LinkedIn, and just to ignore a lot of it and just like stick with your thesis as to what you're building, and to talk to your customers a lot and friends and people that you know in the space you're building in, and be like, hey, do you think this is still relevant? And like if it's not, then pivot and change. I think that pivots are very accepted these days.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'll echo kind of your advice on partnerships and community and networking and getting together in person. One of the things that we've seen a lot of value in recently is putting on happy hours or luncheons with local leaders. We've got consultants or principals in San Diego and Dallas and Nashville. And so we've held some of these in-person events, and to get, 10 to 20 people around a table just to share, what are you seeing? How are you dealing with this? As much as we try to keep up on everything, it's impossible, right? And so it's always great to just hear others' perspectives and what they've tried and failed at, or tried and succeeded at, and just get some insight from other leaders.
You bring up a good point there. We did this at Sendoso too. Like, selling through consultants and agencies is the best because they are far more trusted than your sales team. And so to get them on board and using your tool or product, and then they talk about you on a phone call you're not on, like, oh, hey, I saw a company that did X, and like they're compensated for knowing like what's the latest and greatest. And so like to educate them on like why you're in their space and why you should partner with them, that's massive. And like I think it's good to partner with the other tech companies or whatever space you're in, but like consultants in your space is such a huge benefit.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I was just looking at the clock and we are over our time, so it's time to bring the episode to a close. Unfortunately, we could talk for an hour, I know, but let's go ahead and wrap it up there. Lots of great insights and practical tips. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, but I got to ask my famous question at the end here, and that's, what's something else that's brought you a little bit of goodness other than AI and all this fun work stuff?
Yeah, I was I think the last time I was on, I mentioned a book like called Let Your People Surf, which was a good one, but I'll go a different direction this time. I found a long time ago like exercise is the best thing ever for like a clear head, and like I've gotten really into running again. Like I when I was younger, I did a couple marathons, and so like I think some of that I've started doing is I pick an event, like whether it be a 5K or a marathon or a Ironman if you're crazy, and like have it 6 months out, 10 months out, and then like train for that event. And like it's not work related, but it's one of those things that like when you're healthy and in shape and post workout, I think way clearer. And so like my advice is try to do something crazy that's athletic, well, at least once a year, whether it is some sort of run, swim, whatever. Like I did this one from Alcatraz once. That was dumb, but it was fun. So like I recommend having something like that, like go climb a mountain, something that I think is important to have at least once a year. And I think that's a good goal, as well as you're building a company or running your company. Like to have that will only help the company grow faster.
I think that's fantastic. And I certainly resonate with that. I just competed in a bodybuilding contest a month ago. I've always been into weightlifting and bodybuilding, and the last time I competed was 20 years ago. And so
nice.
It was just a personal goal, so it was the masters division, 50 and above, 55 and above. But to have that, I set that goal a year ago and said, okay, I'm going to get in shape, build my muscle back, get shredded for the stage. And it was a lot of fun, fascinating. Taught me a lot about discipline and consistency and all things that, maybe I've forgotten a little bit about, but really good. Well, thanks for sharing. That is good stuff. Let's all go exercise today after we listen to this podcast.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard.
Have a great one, and look forward to talking to you again.
Some Goodness is a creation of Revenue Innovations. Visit us at revenueinnovations.com and subscribe to our newsletter.